South Africa. It's internationally known as the birthplace of Amapiano and Afro House, but there are 5 genres that paved the way to South Africa's dominance in the musical landscape. My name is Matthew Young, and I'm a producer on the content team at Splice. Back in July of 2024, we went to Johannesburg with the goal of creating a series of sample packs that encompass the full range of musical styles in South Africa. Amapiano and Afro House have really taken the world by storm, but we wanted to dig into the history of South African music and share that history with everyone. We were extremely lucky to work with some of South Africa's top talented musicians in one of the most legendary studios in Johannesburg, Jazzworks. Over the course of 7 days, we recorded drums, percussion, electric guitars, acoustic guitars, bass, vocals, and a choir. During my time there, I interviewed musicians and historians on the styles of music we recorded with the hopes of providing the history behind the sounds. The oldest genre we recorded is called Kwela, and it originated in the 40s and 50s. Splice Sessions was often referred to as one of the musicians who popularized the genre, but it has deep roots in the apartheid era and the musical culture of the townships. Kwela and its predecessor Marabi have often been described as a fusion of American jazz and traditional South African music. It's characterized by a swing that's similar to jazz and harmony that centers around 1, 4, and 5 chords. Kwela ensembles typically consisted of a simple jazz drum kit, upright bass, guitar, piano, and the penny whistle, which has a unique place in the history of the genre. We were extremely honored to work with Sibusisa Lerole, the son of penny whistle player Jack Lerole, who was one of the larger names in the genre in its later years.
Kwela actually is a music genre that originated in Sophia Town and Alexandra. How it came to being called Kwela music, so they would give a young boy a penny whistle that when you see the cops, just blow your penny whistle hard so that it's a signal that the cops are coming. When they will jam on the street corners doing the thing called basking. And then they also saw that, okay, this is working. So that because people would come and dance next to them and give them some money for them to survive. Them, during those days when they were found playing that music, they would be arrested and they would be told to climb on a police van that was later called Kwela. Those apartheid police, they knew very less of words. The only word that they knew very much is that when you see a black person and you arrest them, you must tell them to Kwela into the van. So to Kwela is to climb into the van, then you are arrested.
Right, Max?
Another genre that has dominated the musical landscape of South Africa is Mbaqanga and its sibling Mqashiyo. These genres have influences that range from gospel and African American soul and funk music, but it's distinctly South African. The term township jive, or simply township, was a label put on this type of music in the 70s, but it was simply a reflection of the location that this music was being written and performed. 2 musical groups that came up time and time again in my interviews were Mahotela Queens and the guitarist Marx Mankwane.
For those of us who grew up in the 70s, Mqashiyo and Mbaqanga were not necessarily a different style of music. Brathemba Mqwena was one of those people who played with Mahotela Queens and all of those old groups with Marx Mankwane and Western Coast. When the record company directors came to say, guys, what is this? What kind of music are you playing? And they were like, what do you mean? We just play what we like. I mean, it's not jazz, it's just our township feeling. And then now someone would say, Mqashiyo. Now Mqashiyo, actually, for all I know, is supposed to be, it's like a hodgepodge. So in the 60s, the influence was still quite strongly African American and American. And so the 60s to the early 70s, you have the groups, the Dark 60 Sisters, in terms of Smanja Manje, in terms of Mqashiyo. There were so many of them.
It's just in us. We
we just rock full time. If you bring a song that is Mbaqanga, we just rock on it. We grew up listening to Max Mankwani from Mahotela Queens. So the style that we play with Mbaqanga and Mqashiyo, yeah, those guys really, you're actually digging the graves of the ones that are gone.
Maskandi is primarily a Zulu form of music that originates from the Eastern Cape and was prevalent in the 80s and 90s. Instrumentally, it's characterized by the unique tunings of the acoustic guitar, concertina, simple drums, and triplet fills. The genre is associated with the Zulu language and culture of KwaZulu-Natal.
Maskandi actually is more the music that was established very early in the homelands when people were taken back to KwaZulu-Natal, when it was still named the Natal. If you can go anywhere else, there's no other province in South Africa that has Maskandi. Maskandi originates from KwaZulu-Natal. The rurals in KwaZulu-Natal, they would spread their message through their vocals up until they got guitars, because it was more of the vocal and the guitar. Whatever drum, it was made from a huge oil can and the skin from the cow.
For the people who came from Natal and were playing that type of music, it was just Zulu music, mculo wabo, their type of music. The name, the word itself, Maskandi, is actually a corruption of the Afrikaans word musikant, which means musician, which was a word that was used by some of the record producers to say, what the sort musikante is this? In other words, what kind of musicians are these and what kind of music is it? Yabwana, this muskant. That's how the name got corrupted from musikant, which means musician, to what then characterized and gave a sense of identity and brand to that style of music.
Almost all the musicians we work with in Johannesburg had roots in the church, and they all reflected on the church's influence on their musical DNA. Choral styles such as bube and escatamina are very prevalent in South Africa, and some of these styles gain international notoriety through popular cultural moments such as The Lion King.
It's traditional music, it's gospel music. But even gospel music on its own, it's actually subdivided into this traditional gospel, there's contemporary gospel in here. So they would take, in traditional gospel music, they would take the format or the style that we do from the traditional music and then, just incorporate that into traditional gospel in a way. So everything is somehow, they are correlated. As you know, our country is divided into provinces, yeah? So Xhosa, it's in the Eastern Cape. The province as a whole, that style belongs to them. You know what I mean? So it's the language and the style. It's the rhythm. It's the notes, how they play their notes. Same as if you go to KwaZulu-Natal, which is the case of the Zulu province in South Africa. The music there is Katamia, famously made by Black Mambazo. Your Maskandis, your Mbaqangas, they are from KZN. Sure.
Emerging in the late 80s and early 90s, Kwaito is the most immediate predecessor to Afro House. Musically, it's a fusion of Chicago house and traditional South African culture, and it's typically fronted with a vocalist or MC. It's slowed way down from its American counterpart, and usually clocks in around 100 beats per minute. Instrumentally, it's similar to Chicago house with its usage of samples, synths, drum machines, and MCs or vocalists.
So Kwaito is pretty much a South African sound that originated from Soweto and other South African hoods. Very early from, I guess, the 80s, pretty much late 80s going into the 90s. And it became a very, very, very popular sound in the 90s. And it originated from guys we call them pantsulas, street smart guys. It's our grassroots gangster sound, basically. That's pretty much what Kwaito is to us. It's the sound of the OGs. Kwaito's not too far off from house because I mean it has a lot of percussional instruments. You know what I mean? There's a lot of percussion that's involved with the vibe of Kwaito, and house borrowed that a lot as well. Kwaito borrowed some percussions from house. House also borrowed some percussion elements from Kwaito, and so they became similarly related, right? But the real grungy sound, the grungier sound, the more vulgar type of sound is Kwaito, because it was the sound of the typical hood gangster, you know what I mean?
What struck me most in my discussions about these genres is the fluidity between them and the reticence to categorization in general. While genres play a really important role in allowing users on Splice to discover new sounds, the distinctions between them aren't necessary for their enjoyment. If you want to listen to the sounds of these genres, check out Splice Sessions South Africa and dig in. Hopefully this bit of knowledge helps folks appreciate the lengths at which Splice goes to expose the world to these fresh sounds.